I'm Brian Blakley, VP of Cybersecurity Strategy at ConnectSecure. Taking a few minutes here to share my perspective on this year's Verizon Data Breach Investigations report. Especially, at least from my perspective, two major trends that matter deeply to MSPs within the report. That's the rise in vulnerability exploitation and the dramatic increase in third-party breaches. So the first point I think is striking, right? This year, 20% of breaches were linked to the exploitation of known vulnerabilities, right? That's a 34% increase from last year. And to me, that's not just a statistic, right? That's a wake-up call. What's especially concerning from my perspective is how many of these breaches are tied to edge devices, firewalls, VPNs, remote access points that define the perimeter of most of our clients. And wow, right? That's devices that we as MSPs deploy and manage every single day. But even with clear knowledge of these vulnerabilities, only 54%, just over 50% were patched before they were exploited. That's essentially like a coin flip, right? And it's a coin flip we're losing. And speaking from experience running MSP operations, I get it, right? Patching edge devices is painful. Clients worry about downtime. Vendors sometimes drag their feet with firmware releases, and frankly, many MSPs fall into a mindset where patching becomes this checklist maintenance administrative type of task instead of what it actually is. And that's a frontline security defense. But here's the truth, in my opinion, that makes it painfully clear, right? Attackers have operationalized vulnerability scanning faster than most of us, right? Faster than most MSPs have operationalized patching, right? They're running constant automated scans. They're exploiting new CVEs within days, right? And they're absolutely prioritizing exposed infrastructure, right? If we, if we as MSPs don't close that gap, if we don't treat vulnerability management as a high urgency, right, a client critical discipline, we're handing threat actors the keys to our kingdom and all of our clients, right? We have to lean in here for this one. Our job, it's incumbent upon us to ruin ROI for attackers. We want to ruin their return on investment. So they go somewhere else. They go to somebody else's network that's not patched or taken care of, right? So we need to shift from thinking about patching as an administrative checkboxy maintenance task to treating it as an active form of incident prevention, right? So that means starting with exposure, right? Not convenience. Those public facing systems got to be patched first, no matter how uncomfortable that is operationally. It also means shrinking the time between vulnerability disclosure and vulnerability remediation. I mean, from months, some clients out there, months or quarters, right, of remediation, we got to shrink that to days or weeks at most. And it means investing in real visibility. If it's something that kept me up at night as a CISO, it's visibility. What don't I know? What don't I see? Right? Knowing which systems are vulnerable, which ones are exposed, and which ones matter most in a potential breach chain. If there's one thing I've learned in the CISO trenches, it's that vulnerabilities that matter, they're rarely the ones that are hiding deep inside a network, right? It's the ones sitting out in the open and in plain view of the internet that get weaponized first. The second critical trend in the report that sticks out for me is the surge in third-party breaches. 30%, per the report, 30% of breaches now involve a third party. That's double what we saw last year, right? And this should, in my opinion, this lands squarely on the shoulders of every MSP out there. Why? Why would I say that? Well, because we as MSPs, we're third parties, right? And we're not just managing infrastructure, we're part of our clients' supply chains. Every remote session we initiate, right? Every system we monitor, every credential we hold, these are all potential avenues for compromise. When I was building MSP operations, it was easy to think of security controls as something we applied to our clients. But in today's environment, we have to recognize that our own internal posture is part of every client's risk surface. And their vulnerability really oftentimes starts with us. We are all technologically married and we are all connected. The breaches we see tied to third-party compromises are rarely about, and I want to hit this point home, it's rarely about these sophisticated 0 days. Right? These oftentimes aren't sophisticated attacks for most of our clients and ourselves. Right? More often they're failures of security 101 stuff, right? Basic hygiene, horrible processes, lack of leadership, weak authentication on RMM platforms, poor internal segmentation, overprivileged accounts, and just no real effective monitoring in place, right? A lot of security theater and compliance theater going on. We, as MSPs, we have to treat ourselves like the high value targets we are, because we are. We are tasty one-to-many one-to-many targets for bad actors. Okay, so that starts. How do we start treating ourselves like high value targets? Right. We want to start with hardening our own internal environments first. Right. As an MSP owner operator for many years, it was always like the plumber's pipes, the shoemaker's kid's shoes. Right. We take care of ourselves last. Where in fact we need to flip that on its head and go more with the oxygen mask theory. Right. We need to take care of ourselves first so we can take better care of our clients. It means enforcing things like MFA everywhere we can. I'm being Captain Obvious there, but MFA universally, right? Segmenting administrative access, actually reviewing privileges, and stop making exceptions for convenience. It really also means vetting every vendor we use, right? Every software platform we integrate with the same scrutiny we'd apply to a critical client asset. Right. And it means assuming breach, right? It's cliche. It's a matter of if, not, it's a matter of when, not if, right? And that whole thing. But assuming breach is an important mindset, right? Architecting operations under the principle that no single compromised system should ever cascade into client environments. So this isn't theory. It's in my opinion, practical survival. And it's what the best MSPs are already doing. They're building operational resilience. That's not just about selling peace of mind, right? That's cliche too, for decades, right? MSPs selling peace of mind to clients, but really truly putting them in a position to earn it. And stepping back even further, I believe there's broader forces here that are reshaping threats for MSPs. And the Verizon report simply shines a light on them too. Attackers are just, they're scaling faster than our defenders, right? It's fueled by things like automation, right? AI, faster weaponization of vulnerabilities, right? Clients are becoming a lot more, far more sensitive to supply chain risk, right? Driven by insurance requirements, regulatory expectations, and simply their own survival instincts. And security credibility is becoming the ultimate differentiator out there for MSPs. It's not just your ability to manage tickets, right? And pick up the phones when your client answers. That's table stakes. It's going to be, and it is, your ability to prove you're operationally secure, right? Disciplined, trustworthy. The days of reactive, ad hoc security postures are over. The MSPs that thrive will be the ones who build their credibility systematically, right? Demonstrate it proactively and protect it ruthlessly. If I had to leave you with a single message from this year's Verizon report, it'd be this: patch like your future depends on it, because it does. Secure yourself with the same rigor you promise your clients. right? Operationalizing, this is a marketing buzzword, I get it, but get beyond the marketing slogan of operationalizing kind of a zero trust mindset, putting those tools and technologies and that approach process in place around zero trust. And understand that trust is earned in actions, not in claims. It's what you do, not what you say you do. The fundamentals, patching, privilege control, visibility, segmentation matter more now than ever, because in complexity, attackers thrive. Complexity is our enemy there. So let's get together and ruin the attackers' ROI. Let's ruin the attackers' return on investment, because in disciplined defenders win. So thanks for listening. Stay sharp and stay secure.